Hello my disciples, Father Andrew here. Before we get into this, there's probably not going to be many visuals, so you're better off just listening to this while doing something else, using it as background noise, kind of like what people do with Pyrocynical's very long videos that are like 8 hours, or overly sarcastic productions videos which can be up to an hour and a half or even longer, well that being the longest of their videos, the average being like 45 minutes, maybe half an hour. But regardless, that gives me a good opportunity to quickly mention something. I'm probably going to have like some looped CSGO surf footage or something as the visuals because at this point I just don't care. YouTube has completely kneecapped my channel and it's the 18th of October while I'm recording this. My channel's performance is currently, at the time of recording, the lowest it's ever been since I started consistently uploading. Like I've mentioned in previous videos, I have zero idea why this is. I can tell it's definitely a dark suspension. I can't say what it actually is because that might actually cause them to double down on me again. Which, interesting enough, the same situation happened to Roanoke Gaming, a YouTuber I would actually greatly recommend if you're into biology stuff like I am. But regardless, now I want to actually get into the topic of the video. Starting with my first point I want to make, I feel like the Amazing Digital Circus, the comedy in this pilot alone is just better than Murder Drones. Mainly because Murder Drone's comedy is more forced and tends to show up often during times of tension, completely ruining that tension, which makes scenes that should be tense not really tense at all. But the way the Digital Circus handles this is a lot more opportunistic and the actual jokes are inserted in points where they actually make sense. Such as the part where Zooble gets taken apart by, I think they're called Gloinks, and then Jax proceeds to say, "Oh no, they killed Zooble. Who wants to go get something to eat?" The comedy in this scene works because previously Zooble has her arm taken off but is able to put it back on with no ill effect, showing that Zooble is completely fine even when taken apart. And the Gloinks are not treated previously to this as being anything major, they're just treated as being, well, an annoyance at worst until we actually encounter the Gloink Queen. Essentially the joke is Jax is exaggerating and doesn't really see any real problem with the situation, which is why the joke actually works. Another example of the comedy being set up properly is Gangle and Kinga being paired up. While Jax explains that they're totally the most mentally stable and capable individuals to pair together, Kinga immediately starts to juxtapose that by absolutely fucking wilding out. Which, the juxtaposition of his statement combined with the comedic over-exaggeration is what makes the joke fucking work, which is something Murder Drones can't really seem to do. Most of Murder Drones' humour is usually just edgy and forced and just in places where it doesn't really fit. I will admit that Murder Drones does have a few good moments, but generally at this point, I just can't even be bothered with digging up a funny moment from it, because I just can't, man. Funny moment being in quotations. Like the only example I'm really gonna bother digging up is the scene where Uzi slaps N with a arm when they first meet, and he just says, "Did you slap me with that arm?" And she just says, "Holy crap, it talks," and it just feels like a fucking Marvel moment. I straight up just cannot, I don't have the energy to even bother digging up more examples. I refuse to sit through any more, "Oh, the Edge, Shadow the Edgehog, Edgelord Extravaganza, Ammo, I have become 2006 iPod moment." You know, I'm just gonna move on to the next point, and that being the actual characters themselves. I feel like the characters in Murder Drones just have less character than the ones in Digital Circus. Yeah, there is a good bit of variety in some of the characters, some of them are definitely more sinister or malicious than others, but that's really all there seems to be to it at times. Yes, N is definitely more youngling-like, I have to say youngling, because if I say the C word, YouTube will not like that. Hell, he does a fucking crayon drawing at one point, and generally acts younger than all the other characters. In fact, I'd guess his mental age is anywhere between like 7 to 10 years old. And I don't know if I really mentioned Uzi, but I'm gonna be honest, despite the fact that she does change throughout the series, and we see how the Absolute Solver affects her and other characters, I don't particularly care, and honestly, I'm just gonna be honest, out of these two, Murder Drones is the one I cared least about. So now I want to actually get to like the important thing that I mentioned earlier, and that being how both series handle the death of a character. Of course, no characters have died in Digital Circus yet. As far as you know, characters only become, I think, obstructed or abstracted. I don't know what the term is. I'm just going to quickly Google that. It's abstraction, yeah. Anyway, we can treat abstraction as a form of death in this, because when a character goes through abstraction, as far as we know, it's a permanent process. And it's the result of a person giving up. So my theory is abstractions represent a person deciding that they've had enough and don't want to exist anymore, and that's the YouTube way of putting it. I can't actually say what it is, because again, it's gonna fuck up my channel. All I can say is it's a slide of the sewage variety. But anyway, it's basically a person deciding that they've had enough, and what we can only describe as the soul of that person no longer being there. All that's left is the violent, abstracted husk. So essentially, the character, the actual personality is gone, and all that's left is this, effectively a violent corpse, which is a great way to kill off a character by actually killing what makes them a character and then having what's left essentially become a zombie. And that hits even harder because it's the character dying in a way that really is probably one of the most tragic ways a person can go, and that's deciding they've had enough. Meanwhile, Murder Drones, when a character dies in that, as far as we've seen in, I can't remember which episode it was, when Jay appears with Tessa after being destroyed, she explains that because she was an effective employee, she had been cloned more, which implies that there's probably backups of V, N, and J, which basically means that if those characters die, death means fucking nothing for them. Which means from a narrative standpoint, you can't really kill those characters off in a meaningful way. But the Amazing Digital Circus, on the other hand, as I mentioned, when a character gets abstracted, it's, as far as we know, permanent. So, unlike Murder Drones, actually losing a character in Digital Circus is going to be permanent and have a permanent effect and just can't be undone by cloning said character. And regardless, even if the Digital Circus characters can't die from injury like we see in one shot where Ragatha gets a literal meat cleaver stuck in her head and then pulls it out like it's nothing and doesn't even show any injury, it could be that death in the Digital Circus world only comes when a person's completely given up. Despite how similar that might be to Murder Drones and how characters are basically never gonna die until, like, whatever stops them from coming back, there's actually a big difference here. When I say characters, I'm pretty sure that only really applies to the disassembly drones, but I don't really know and I don't care. The situation's very different. With Murder Drones, a disassembly drone could die 2-3 times and just keep coming back. But in Digital Circus, they could shrug off hits that would normally kill them, but once they lose all hope, that's a permanent death. So what I'm basically saying is the difference here is, in Murder Drones, death basically means nothing for disassembly drones, while in Digital Circus, death technically can't happen until a character completely loses hope. So while both can die, one only happens if they completely give up, and the other one only happens if maybe something interferes with the actual process of being cloned. But regardless, Murder Drones, the characters could fundamentally just keep coming back, so death is really just pointless. While in Digital Circus, it's permanent, and will have a permanent effect as mentioned. And yeah, I've probably repeated myself a few times, but I'm just trying to make absolutely sure that you understand there's a distinct difference in both shows and how death of a character would be treated and how that's going to completely affect the plot. In summary, one can be completely affected by the death of a character, the other one not so much because it means nothing. Which is one of the key reasons I actually prefer the Amazing Digital Circus over Murder Drones, because it actually shows that Gooseworx has a much higher level of competent writing than whoever's making Murder Drones. I mean, just the pilot alone shows off each character having a distinct personality, not just through their dialogue but through how they interact and what they do. In fact, I'm just going to quickly go over them real quick. Jax is a lovable asshole with a skilled, opportunistic sense of humor. Ragatha is caring, supportive, and generally just a very nice person in general. Like, she hardly knows Pomni, but she wants to make her first day as good as possible, and feels bad when it gets ruined by abstracted Korfmo. Especially when you consider the fact that she's the one who came up with the idea to go check on Korfmo in the first place. So if anyone has a reason to feel bad, it would be her. But this kind side to her character, even when she's been glitched and the creature has just beaten the crap out of her, she asks Pomni to help her but understands if she doesn't want to, and she forgives Pomni for running off because she was scared of abstracted Korfmo. But she's also not afraid to show her angry side when Jax mentions the centipede thing. But she does calm down very quickly when he says that it could be a completely unrelated question. So it does show a rather forgiving side to Ragatha. Moving on next, we have Gangle, who, I'm going to be honest, doesn't have much character outside of just being mopey and sad and having that happy mask to, I presume, hide their unhappy side? I feel like Gangle might get more character in a future episode because it'd be very hard to give all the characters characterization in one. But yeah, moving on to the next character, we have Kinga. Kinga is, I'm gonna be honest, this guy he's pure autistic schizo energy in a singular character. He is his own vibe. it's very hard to really call him anything apart from just chaotic neutral. Actually, addendum, chaotic good. There's not much of a negative side to Kinger that I can really point out. In summary, he's just a ball of chaotic good, and he's, honestly, he has some really bizarre moments. Some of his dialogue is just, what the fuck, but in a really good way. Like when, Zoogl's head ends up in his hands, he's like, you didn't see a game show in there, did you? And she's just completely bewildered. Which is a good segue to actually talk about Zoogl as a character. She's not outright nasty, but she tends to be just a bit of a bitch. But she also does have a caring side to her. Like after Korfmo gets abstracted, she's clearly not happy about it, and she does remark that she honestly thought Kinger would be next. So it does show that she has a level of concern, but she is more negative than positive from my perspective. And okay, moving on to Kane. This guy, I'm gonna be honest, this guy is chaotic neutral. He's definitely got a good caring side to him. He fixed Ragatha's glitchiness without any hesitation and went to save Pomni from the void. And he seems to genuinely care about all the characters around him because he doesn't want any of them to go mad like what happened to Korfmo, which is why he even creates all these adventures in the first place. So I'd say he's a pretty good character and there's no real negative to him. I don't think there's too much characterization to him. I feel like there should be a bit more. But anyway, moving on to his little sidekick, Bubble. Not too much to say about Bubble. I feel like Bubble needs more characterization, but then again, they're not a main character, they're like a side character, so not too much to say. Moving on, we have the final one, and that is Pomni. Pomni comes across as quite an anxious character. I mean, considering the situation she's in, I think a lot of us would be. And it's also mentioned by the other characters that they were like this when they first came in. So I do believe Pomni's actual character will start to shine in later episodes. But we do see a bits and pieces of what she's like as a person. She's definitely like more cowardly, but she does have a good side to her. She does genuinely try to help Ragatha, but when she gets her hand glitched and there's that big monster, the abstracted Korfmo, she does run away. We do see that she may not be the most mentally stable either, as when she's running through the back rooms, or the back offices I guess we can call them, she's starting to fucking lose it, so she may not be the most mentally stable person. But honestly, I feel like her character is also going to really start to show up more in future episodes, because in the pilot she was just anxious most of the time, or just like zoning out. But yeah, that's me going over the actual character of all the characters. I feel like some of them do need to express themselves more in future episodes. And in all honesty, I'm really excited to see what Amazing Digital Circus does in the future. But anyway, before I actually conclude this, I need to say a few more things. Firstly, go watch the pilot for the Amazing Digital Circus, and if you like it, you can actually give them financial support. There's a link in the description for that. Another thing is, I actively do want to talk about writing more on this channel and give some good and bad examples of writing and how to actually make your writing fairly good. I mean, keep in mind, I basically do nothing but that. Albeit, everything I write has been provided to me by the Lord, but regardless, I would like to make more writing related videos. And finally, I will not be uploading any videos in November because I'm waiting for this dark suspension to come to an end, if it ever will. But for the meantime, could you please go take a look at my YouTube channel, find videos that you like, and share them with people you know will like them. Because my channel is for some reason severely lacking in outreach, probably due to that dark suspension. But anyway, that concludes my comparison of the Amazing Digital Circus and Murder Drones, and why I honestly think that the Amazing Digital Circus is better. Anyway, that's all I've got for today. Go away now.